And we are live. We are live, Brad. Lovely to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Karen. Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm honored to be joining you here.
Well, it's my honor to have you here too. So let me introduce this wonderful gentleman, Brad Strydom. Brad is that how I say your name, Brad? Is it Strydom? Is that
Correct. That's correct. Better
Brad's
than
a
most.
Thank you. Brad is a certified exercise science master health coach, nutritionist, and behavior change specialist. And Brad has vast experience in transforming hundreds of lives to optimal wellness over a decade in the health and fitness space, along with owning and running a successful strength and conditioning facility. Today, Brad runs a growing personalized one-on-one online nutrition and health coaching program, and he mentors clients in a system that is proven to be successful and sustainable. So, once again, welcome, Brad. It is lovely to have you here. I was reading that, as you could tell. However, I wanted to make sure I got it all correct. So let me ask you the first question I'd like us to talk about, Brad, is what made you get into this particular business and why are you in it?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking, Karen. I think I'm going to go a little bit back on this one. I originally started in the advertising industry. That's where I originally started. And during that period, I was working in the ad industry, and I decided to do a thing called CrossFit at the time. And that was just a hobby that I took on. CrossFit is a functional fitness movement around the world. It's globally around the world now. And that's at some stage I decided my dad was always an entrepreneur. My dad was a business owner himself. And I don't know what it is within me, but I just decided to leave the fitness industry and go start a gym at the time. Not a huge amount of coaching experience at the time, but I decided to quit the ad industry, and then I moved back to my hometown and I started a CrossFit gym. So brick and mortar facility, put some equipment in, and I started building the business from there. And I think it's much like most people know when it comes to building a business. It's a lot of struggle and strife at the beginning, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And slowly but surely, we built the membership up. And 7 years later, we sold that business, and I sold it with 100 odd members. We're good going business. And from there, I decided to start a nutrition coaching business. And the reason why I started a nutrition coaching business, because I found that it was the missing link that people were missing. So, it's easy for people to get dressed and go to the gym. That's a simple thing for them to do. It's what happens in the other 23 hours of the day. And that's ultimately why I started the nutrition coaching business. So it moves from me wanting to teach people health and fitness to moving to a more holistic approach where I look at the deep health. So we try and look at the big picture with my clients. So, and that kind of leads us today. It's still running after 3 years, and it's still growing. We actually immigrated 2.5 years ago, and we are now living in Adelaide from South Africa. So that's kind of my starting base. It does go a little bit further, but that's the starting base of my kind of building my business and working in the entrepreneurial space as well.
That's interesting, and I'd like to talk to a couple of the points that you made. First of all, you said your dad was an entrepreneur.
Correct. So he owns the family business back in South Africa, which is still going strong 30 odd years later. And my dad I have great admiration for my dad and his style of business. His leadership and his the way he conducts himself within business. So I consider myself quite grateful that I've been able to learn from my dad, because I worked in that industry as well. It's a packaging industry, and I worked during the period of running the gym. I worked in the family business as well, which I did that for the same period of time. So as we're building the business, I worked within the family business as well, which I was quite fortunate to do, be able to build my own business on the side while I worked within the family business as well. So I kind of got a good mentoring from my dad as well along the years as well. So it was fantastic.
And how old were you then, Brad, when you were doing that?
I'm 39 now. I'd probably go back. Started the gym when I was 28, and then ran into the family business. I'd worked prior in the family business as well when I was growing up,
Right.
doing all the odds and ends around the factory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was around about 28 when I started my gym, and that's when I joined the family business as well on a full-time basis.
And isn't it interesting? I too have a similar story where I worked in with my dad in a family business, and don't we learn so much? Isn't that where we often
Huge.
get some basic 101 business service, how to serve the most important things about
Absolutely.
communication and how to treat clients and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
what you found at a very young age when you were in the business?
Absolutely. And there's so many of those things I've carried across to this day. And it's like I
Yeah.
always think, like I hear my dad in the back, and he's got quite a hard style of business. And I think he's, because it's a service-based business and I'm in a service-based business, and you as well, is that he's always pushed that the client is number one. That's what he's always pushed to his side. So yeah. And that's, I think it's, especially working with family, I think it either works or it doesn't, but when it works really, really well.
Yes, and the client is number one. This is the thing, without clients, there is no business. And I think that is a very, very critical part of being successful in business, is how to make that client feel that they're number one.
Yeah.
And how to put them in that position from your perspective as well. Both of them very, very important.
Yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic. What a wonderful story, and what a wonderful background you've had to get you to where you are now. I love it. So, Brad, can I ask you, what do you believe for you personally is what's the most important thing for you in business?
I would say grit to some degree. I think I don't think entrepreneurship is for everybody. I think it's an over glamorized word these days, entrepreneurship, and you know, I think it's great. I think everybody should try it because it will teach you valuable lessons. But I think there's lots of ups and downs. I think I wouldn't say it's an easy route, but it's easy to go and get a job and be comfortable in a particular job. But when going entrepreneurship and building your own gig, there's a lot of trials and tribulations, and it can be very, very tricky at times. And I think we just got to ride the storm with the goods and the bads. So I would say having resilience, persistence, and I always like to say too thick to quit. And I almost use the word, it's almost about character. So that thickness is about character. That, there's going to be times where you want to pack it in, and we continue to push and we continue to push, and things work out as long as we push. And I suppose to some degree, we can also fail fast as well. So make sure we're moving fast enough so we can fail and learn, and then continue to pursue from there. So that's kind of where I think what I think is a valuable lesson within business. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
It's interesting coming from my perspective with quantum physics and our vibration, that we operate in a vibration. I have a different perspective around pushing and things being different in resistance, because I also work with the universal laws, and there's a law of non-resistance.
Yeah.
And it's like you get what you focus on, what you resist persists.
Absolutely.
So I have a different angle to come from.
Which is great.
You don't want it to be hard. Hard is a mental attitude.
Yep.
Not saying there aren't challenges, but there's always learning from every challenge. So it's interesting you say that. I know it requires a resilience to be an entrepreneur, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely agree with you on that. And we're going to have challenges always, that things change that we weren't foreseeing, perhaps the economy and I also come from a perspective where I help people to understand that the outside doesn't actually cause our results. It's what's going on in here. So if we because people are saying things are going to be difficult because the economy is going to crash doesn't mean that your
Yeah.
business is going to crash
No,
unless you believe
no.
that. So yeah, it's interesting, but
Great point. And I like that you can. I mean, I suppose you can only control what you can control yourself. So there's going to be like these spheres of control. Is that there's going to be certain things out of your control, and you can only control, like you say, yourself and how you react to those situations.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
And you know what we want is we want to respond, not react. So responding gives you a place of empowerment, whereas reacting to is once again reacting to outside conditions and circumstances. And we have a choice about how we respond, but we don't, like you say, we can't control some of those other things. So it's our response that we can control.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Great. So let me ask you the next question. If you were giving mentoring to a new budding entrepreneur, and you did suggest that everyone should try it, what would you say would be your secret formula for success?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I would say I'm going to put it down to speed. And the reason why I say speed is because the faster you move with things, the quicker you can see wins. And when you see wins, you'll get motivated and you'll continue to persist. And the reason why I say that, and I'm going to apply it to like the kind of the weight loss space or my own coaching space, is that yes, it takes time for things to move. But when someone starts any particular journey, whether it's a fitness journey or whether it's their weight loss journey, the quicker they move with things, the faster they can see results, the more they're going to get motivated to continue to do things. So from a business space, if you're starting to do something, the faster you can start to get wins with things, the quicker you can get motivated and the more you're going to persist to move forward. So I would say speed would be the number one thing that someone should focus on when they're starting with their business. If I was mentoring someone, just to move quickly, take an action point. We've got a mutual friend, which is Edward Zier, and he's very straight with his points. And I think if anyone takes those nuggets that he provides and executes quickly with them, they will see success faster than if they just sat on those ideas. So I would leave it with that. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, I agree, because we have the law of cause and effect, or the formula for success, and you're really talking about taking action. So we say that the formula for success is your thoughts cause your feelings and emotions, which cause the actions that you take, which cause your results. So for example, if you wake up in the morning with thoughts, I'm depressed and I don't want to be here and I'm just going to stay in bed and pull the covers over my head, what you've done is created a day of not having any results because you've stayed in bed with the cover over your head. And so as opposed to, I don't feel so good, I'm going to get up and give gratitude and go for a walk and take some action that's going to further me towards my goals and my vision today. And that has a completely different outcome.
Absolutely.
So you're right, taking action and taking it, I guess the faster you take it, what you're saying is the more quickly you're going to get results, because it is the action that is the grounding of the energy that we're operating at. So great point.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I just thought of the word, the catalyst. It's such a great catalyst. Action is a great catalyst for other things. So
true, Brad. Yeah. I love that word. It is, because without inspiration, without action, is merely entertainment.
Absolutely.
My master coaches.
I love that.
And it's all very well to have all these ideas about what you want to do and, how you want your life to be like. However, they'll just stay in the quantum realm if we don't actually take action to bring them to this physical world.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
And I'd love to if I can just dovetail on that point that you've said there, Karen. And I think this applies to a lot of people, and I suppose it applies heavily for me, is that I feel, there's a saying, action beats anxiety. And I think for many people, I think when we're doing more, when we're executing quicker, we feel better within ourselves that we're doing work as opposed to sitting on a particular idea. So there's a kind of catch-22 situation. So you're getting work done quicker and you're learning faster, but you're also getting rid of all that stuff that's sitting on your shoulders where you think you should be doing it, but you're not, and that's creating anxiety in yourself. So
that is so true. You're so right. When one is in that sort of place where anxiety kicks in because something's not happening the way that we want to, or we're worried, doing nothing just exacerbates, like you say, taking action, making a list of things that we can do, and then taking action changes the whole picture, changes people's perception of their world, really.
Absolutely.
So that's a great thing to talk about, great conversation to have, Brad. The next thing I want to ask you is, you've done it a few times, you've grown up with it. So what, in your view, is the best way to grow one's business today?
That's a great point there, Karen. I think in today's space, I think there's a lot of value, and I think we kind of exposed this ourselves, is from a personal branding perspective. So I think, in today's space, in regardless of who you follow, if you follow the Edward Ziers of the world, or the Kerwin Rays of the world, or the Richard Bransons, a lot of them have built their personalities and their businesses through their personal brand as well. It can be quite vulnerable at times, putting yourself out there and being the face of your business. But I think in today's age, with the space of social media, and I say rather, instead of calling it social media, kind of call it business media, is that it's an easy platform, and I think we're all selling ourselves at all time. I had a great example of yesterday. I was sitting in the facility at the gym that I work at, and there was a gentleman that came to the door, very well kept guy, must have been in his late 40s, walked in the door, knocked. And he put his hand out and introduced himself, and he said, we're looking at installing solar. Are you guys interested in installing solar? And we had a chat a little bit afterwards, but it just got me to the point of saying, the old school style of doing business, where you're knocking on someone's door and you're putting your hand out and having a conversation and giving a business card, is still such a powerful way to do business. And that's personal branding. He was an impressionable guy, and he looked slick, he looked sharp, great mannerism about himself. And if I needed solar, I would buy from him. And that's personal branding. It's him. He sold himself. So I think there's massive scope for selling yourself in the best way possible to grow your business. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Brad. That's a really good piece of advice for everybody watching. So what would be your biggest challenge in growing your business? What has been your biggest challenge, or what would you consider as your biggest challenge to grow your business?
That's a great question. I think there's I would say wearing many hats. That's what I would say. Wearing many hats. There's a great book. It's called The E-Myth, and they talk about whether you I think it's the technician and so forth. And it's all about wearing a different hat. And I think as we progress within our career, whatever kind of career space we're in, we wear a different hat along the way. But when you become the business owner, it's kind of a solopreneur, you've got to wear, you're wearing the marketing hat, you're wearing the sales hat, you're wearing the coaching hat, you're wearing the finance hat. And I think, it goes back to that speed aspect, is that the faster you move, the quicker you can move out of those positions, and you can wear less hats. You can allocate things, you can get a VA, and you can start to get a marketing team, and you can start to get other coaches involved. So I think for me personally, and maybe I think some of the other coaches out there as well, which are kind of solopreneurs to start out with, is the challenge of wearing many hats. So
I agree. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Brad. Many, many small business owners and solopreneurs and entrepreneurs find that is the case. And I know even in business, when I had one of the businesses I had in New Zealand for over 25 years, and we had staff, at one point we had about 10 staff, and it was always that balance of we're getting busier, we want to bring on someone else, but we're not quite busy enough for a full person. So what do? We don't want to be paying out wages and costs to have someone only 50% employed. And it was always that that level of being unsure about
Yes.
what to do. And so I love now that so many people with VAs, it's a different situation, and with working online and independent contracting, where you can say to someone, well, I'm going to get you to do this and
That
this
specific
only.
job.
And it's a very different way of doing business now to the way that you and I grew up, the businesses that we grew up in with our parents.
Absolutely.
So definitely it requires understanding and adapting to the modern way of doing business and bringing on people and contracting and things like that. Because otherwise there is that ongoing wearing all the hats and doing everything.
Absolutely.
Which is
Absolutely.
quite draining, quite challenging for people. Yeah. So Brad, I want to ask you, do you like to learn?
It's my favorite thing. I do. Why do you ask that, Karen?
Because pretty much I always ask this question, and of people I know also outside these interviews, and that is one thing that I'm establishing we all have in common. All entrepreneurs love to keep learning. And, there are people, believe it or not, there are people in this world, and it's probably 90% of people, 90% of the population who don't learn. They simply stop learning.
Wow.
They get to a point in their life where they think they know enough and they don't keep learning. And so that's one thing I'm establishing, is that entrepreneurs, business owners are different in our thinking. We're different in our mental attitude towards life. And we always want to learn more. And in fact, one of the prime directives of the unconscious mind is to always be seeking more and learning more. It's intrinsic within us, within our unconscious mind. So it's great to hear that you are also one of those people who love to keep learning.
Absolutely. It's such an interesting thing, if I can just add to that, Karen. It's just and I think it's I wouldn't say it's acquisition of knowledge. But I think there must be, I don't know the science, you probably know more about this than I do, but I can imagine that the act of acquiring information and learning would do a lot for your brain.
Yes.
And the development and how the brain works, the programming of a brain. I think I can imagine when you stop learning, when you're not actively seeking out to learn more, your brain stops being able to, think critically about things just because you've got less information coming in. I don't know.
There are a number of reasons why we like learning. What actually happens is we can learn new things. And when we learn something new, some task that we don't know how to do, we create new neural pathways. And so if it's a one task thing, it's one neural pathway. And if it's something that's made up of a number of tasks, we actually create a number of neural pathways. And so if we don't practice it, the pathway gets broken. So say we're actually learning how to do something that we don't know how to do. So the pathway gets broken if we don't practice it 2 or 3 times. And once we practice it 2 or 3 times, that pathway becomes established. And so from then on, we're able to keep doing it. So that's why we can work with people who've had things like strokes and brain damage. We can work with them, and they can relearn to do things. They can learn to do something that was broken, that was removed from their brain. The neural pathway was removed, and we can work with them to create a new pathway.
That's
so
amazing.
And then from that perspective, and then from the other perspective, hi Sarah, we've got someone joined us. Lovely to have you here. She says learning helps with neurogenesis, which also helps avoid dementia long term. So that's fantastic too. So yeah.
Which is a big problem.
Sorry, Brad, what was that?
I said, which is a big problem. Dementia seems to be on the rise as well.
Yes. Yes. So we've got that perspective, and then we've got the other perspective, which is our spirit, the invisible side of us, because I believe that we're a spiritual being in a human bodysuit. So there's two parts of us. There's the physical, visible side of us, and there's a spiritual, invisible, infinite side of us. And the invisible, infinite side of us is always seeking more, always seeking more. The universe has a pull for us to always be seeking more and wanting more and learning more and having a bigger, more expanded version of ourselves, creating a bigger, more expanded version of ourselves.
Yes.
And so there's two sides to learning which are fulfilled in that way. So that's fantastic. Last question, Brad, is what is your dream for your business and life in, say, the next 5 to 10 years, if you would like to share that?
I would love to. It's a good question. It's definitely something I think about on a regular, because I think that ballpark, we never know what's going to happen. I think COVID-19 showed us that plans can change pretty quickly. So I'm always assessing where things are going and where I kind of see my vision. And I love the word that you used there in terms of that kind of vision and that destination that I'm looking for. Ultimately, my end goal as I continue within the health and kind of wellness space is the functional medicine route and working within that kind of space, whether it's a health coach or within a functional medicine practice itself. But that's the long-term vision. There's a fair amount of studies that I need to get through in order to get there. But at the moment, we dig deep and we continue with what we're doing. But that's the ultimate vision in the next couple of years, to work towards that particular point, is the functional medicine space.
Wow, that's amazing. What a wonderful vision to have.
Yeah.
And just to let you know from my perspective, that if you think it's a long-term vision, it's going to take a long time and a lot of study. It will be.
Need more speed.
Reassess what it is you think you need and where you feel that you want to be before you can release that part of your business. Because if you go, it's a long way out, I've got to learn a lot and I can't do it until I do that. And, you know, I remember saying that to someone who said they wanted to go back to university, or they thought they were going to go to university and get a diploma or a degree in something that they were interested in teaching. Yep. And I said, well, just really think about that, because that's a piece of paper that's going to cost you a lot of money to get that. Sure. And she already had most of the information, knowledge, and skills to become an expert. And so once again, we are so patterned and programmed to think that things have to be like this in order for us to achieve that. And it's simply a belief. I'd love to talk to you some more about that
I love that.
And just say, wonderful vision you have. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure and honor to chat with you today, Brad. And if there's any closing thoughts you have, and how also I'd love you to tell people how they can get in touch with you to work with you if they choose.
Super. Just on that note, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on your show, Karen. It's been an absolute pleasure. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more about what I do, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's a good place to find me. And you can find me on all the other social channels as well, whether it's Instagram and Facebook. And then you can find me on my website as well, which is Brad Strydom, which is my name and surname, at .com.au or onlinefatloss.com.au. That's my links.
Fabulous. And if you send those to me as well, I will pop them into the post that I do after this with the interview online, and then people can see that as well.
You're an absolute gem. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome. Thanks once again, and I'll say goodbye to everybody, and we'll end the broadcast. Thank you for showing up. Bye.
You're a star. Thanks, Karen.